because I'm William, this is Sharon, and we are willing to share the truth with you. And we are bringing up-to-date history of Black history here in America for everybody basically in America, but especially for our Black community and our Black young men and women, so that they'll know that even though they're trying to erase history, we want to bring and keep history going so they'll learn and that they'll have, as we're coming up on these midterms, we're keeping up on current events in the Black community to help y'all to make the right selection this Lord willing coming November. First, let's give a shout out to Victor Glover, the first Black man to orbit the moon. Amen. Despite the DEI and everything that this administration is trying to put on, this man was highly qualified. Much more qualified than these incompetents that we've got in this administration. So we are thankful. And of course, there was the woman, the first woman to orbit the moon also. However, it was the Black man and woman that built this country. And so we're going to give honor to the Black man and his accomplishments, because the women, the white women, and all the other white men in history already get their dues. We're going to give due to where dues are needed. And we're just grateful that they're all up there safe, orbited, and as I said, we're giving honor where honor is due. So Victor Glover, Captain Victor Glover, we give a shout out to you today. We're going to be talking about our history part. Is going to be Nat Turner. And then we're also going to have a discussion about this UN resolution. We touched a little on it last week. We got a chance to look at it into it some more and to get some more information. So we'll be discussing that. And then we'll be getting out of your way for this week. All right? So we're going to take it over to Sharr here to start off with Nat Turner and what she learned about Nat Turner and give the history about him.
Thank you, Will. All right, so we're going to get into this about Nat Turner. We know that Nat Turner was an enslaved African American man. He was a preacher and a revolutionary who led one of the most famous slave rebellions in United States history. So he was a revolutionary, okay? He was a preacher. He was a Black man, an enslaved African American man. He was born into slavery in Southampton County, Virginia. From a young age, he was known to be deeply religious and believed he had been chosen by God for a special purpose. He learned to read, something that was very rare for enslaved people to do, because if you recall back in the day, they didn't want Black people to learn how to read. They wanted to keep us dumbed down. But Nat Turner learned how to read at an early age, okay? He learned to read, something very rare for enslaved people at that time. And as he grew into a young man, he became a preacher among enslaved communities. He believed he received visions and signs from God that guided his actions and what he did. Okay? So, and we're going to get into that in just a minute about the revolution. But what he was used for during that time of enslavement, he was used to, if you look at the movie of Nat Turner, you can bring that up on your TV. You can watch it on Prime. You can watch it on, I believe YouTube has it. It costs $3.99. But it shows you how that he was taught by the slave master's wife how to read the Bible. And how when he was taught how to read the Bible, the white slave masters wanted him to come to the plantations and teach the Black people, the enslaved people at that time, how to obey their masters. So he was to go and take and use the word of God, the Bible, to go help enslave or keep his own people submissive to their to the plantation owners. Okay, and so that's what his job was to be. But in reference to him doing that, going to preach the word of God, going to share with enslaved black people that were on the plantations and stuff, and how he would use different scriptures to let them know, slaves and obey your masters. He was seeing a lot of the things that was happening to his own people, as far as them getting beat, as far as how they were being mistreated, and whatnot have you. So Nat Turner, it started really affecting him and seeing his own people being mistreated. Okay, so let us go on. It says, what did he do? In August 1831, Nat Turner led a rebellion known as the Nat Turner Rebellion. Turner and a small group of enslaved men began moving from plantation to plantation. They killed white slaveholders and their families. The group grew to around 50 to 70 people at its peak before it was stopped. About 55 to 60 white people were killed. The rebellion was eventually suppressed by local militias and armed white civilians. Why did Nat Turner do what he did? And we're going to say this on our show right now. We don't believe that the way forward, okay, to see change happen is by violence. We don't believe in violence in any way possible. And so this is going to be a hard one for us tonight, because to think that whether Nat Turner was right in what he was doing or whether he was wrong in what he's doing, I guess that's going to have to be left up to each and every one of us to think about the actions of Nat Turner, because Nat Turner truly believed that it was God that called him to this mission, and that is to help free his enslaved brothers and sisters that were enslaved on the plantations from the things, the atrocities that he was seeing being done to his own black people. So why did Nat Turner do what he do? Nat Turner said he reacted because of religious visions. He believed God commanded him to rise up against slavery. He saw slavery as a deep moral evil that had to be destroyed. He interpreted signs in nature, like when he saw the eclipse in the sky, as confirmation of this mission. So he did what he did because he truly believed in his heart of hearts that this is the mission that God was calling him to do. And that is to stand up in the midst of oppression, in the midst of opposition against African American people and against enslaved people. He really truly believed in his heart of hearts that he was doing the will of God. Okay? So in his own words, and this was recorded after his capture, he believed he was carrying out divine judgment. Okay? And I'm going to touch a little bit just on what his confession was. So, the rebellion, I'm looking at the consequences, but I just wanted to see what his confession was. His confession was just like he said, that he believed that he was carrying out the will of God. He believed that God was showing him through signs and whatnot have you to go against the oppressors, to go against the masters that were mistreating enslaved people. And that was his deep belief. Nat Turner proclaimed that he was called of God for a specific purpose and plan. And he also saw intense visions, okay, where he saw the spirit or divine signs, often using biblical language. An example being, he said he saw an eclipse and he took it to mean a signal from God, telling him, okay, that it was time. He also referenced passages like the book of Revelation, where justice and judgment come from God's hands. These visions gave him a sense of purpose as he saw himself as a prophet leading a final divine reckoning against slavery. So this is what Nat Turner's thoughts were. He truly, like I said before, believed in his heart of hearts will that God had called him to this mission, okay, to rise up and to stand against the oppressors and to do something to stop what they were doing to enslaved people, as far as the beatings, as far as the rape of women, as far as the lynchings, okay? And so this is what he felt God was calling him to do. Was it just? Was it right? We can't really say in our heart of hearts if whether or not the way Nat Turner was feeling and how he felt he was hearing from God and doing everything that God had called him to do, we can't really say if whether or not what he did was just or unjust. And I share something with my husband today, and that is that, you know, even though Nat Turner killed a lot of white people, I believe it was 50 altogether, I told my husband, I said, that's awfully funny how they, you know, they were quick to hang the slave people that rose up and try to fight back or try to run and get away from the South and what was going on with slavery there. It's funny how they lynched our people and they killed our people. But yet after this all took place, we see how that over 200 innocent black enslaved people were killed because of the actions of Nat Turner. And they were killed at the hands of white people. These were innocent children, innocent men, innocent women. Okay? And so why didn't swift justice come upon these people that murdered as well? So I'm going to turn it to my husband right now.
Well, those are some interesting points that you brought out, Sharr. And I think that the thing that we want to point out is the teaching of Nat Turner. Okay, when should it be taught? I don't even know if it is. I don't remember being taught of it when I was in school, but perhaps maybe junior high or at least in high school, it should be taught. It might be a little bit too rough. They'll use the excuse.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit too rough for kindergarten, for the K through 6. So you should do it. But by the time that you're in junior high and in senior high school, then you should know you have encountered life. Okay.
That's right.
And I also, though, remember them teaching us about the John Brown grade when I was in K through 6. So, and it was kind of a little lean, moderate, mild teaching of it. So if they taught that, it could teach Nat Turner, because Nat Turner's rebellion was really the essence that set the stage for future rebellions against slavery.
Yes, it sure was.
Okay, so it should be taught, and it is not taught, is not recognized, because it was a situation where, again, you will see, as Sharr said, you have people, they hung the black people, but look how the white people got away with injustice, with murder. And also, they probably don't want to tell the reason why the rebellion is because of the slavery, because of the way that they were treated. And also, he was all right as long as they used him to preach to the slaves to put them in line, as you say. But when he was actually doing the work of the Lord, and the main thing in the movie that we watched, the 2016's Birth of a Nation, we saw where they were upset because a black man baptized a white man.
Yes.
So it was and I looked that up today, and it was called cross-racial baptism. And so that's what got them upset. So they don't want to teach that. They don't want, because, as I saw another one say, that it shows their own guilt.
Yes.
But it needs to be taught. White children, white community, black community that doesn't know this, because you have grown-ups now who say, well, I'm not sure about, I don't know. No, you're ignorant or you want to stay ignorant.
That's right.
But it should be taught, because it's a reality. Y'all did it.
Yes.
Okay? Y'all did
exactly.
it. Y'all started this in motion in 1619. It happened. It's a reality. So teach it.
Yes.
And teach it from the facts. Go ahead and continue.
Very good points, Will. And something I was thinking about as I was sitting here, and like I said, this is a hard one for me because Will asked me the question earlier. He said, was he justified in what he was doing, in what Nat Turner done? And again, we don't, we don't push violence on our platform here. This is something that happened in history. With one of our Black enslaved people. And so this needs to be shared. This needs to be looked at, because when you look at it, it's really no different from the way that Malcolm X, the way he first thought about how he didn't want to be in the what is it called, the civil rights movement, and use nonviolence. He was thinking that violence was the way to get answers, or to get to see change happen. And I'm not sure if Nat Turner thought that way, but we live in a society where we all teach our children. Hi, everybody. I'm going to mention some that's joining us tonight. First of all, we have Everton Watson. Hi, Everton in Africa. We have Erica Carter. Hi, Erica. We're glad you guys are all here. I can't see the rest of them. 5B1 by. Hi, welcome. But anyway, I wanted to mention this, and that is, Will, we teach our children in this society that violence begets violence, okay? But one thing we fail to overlook, and that is the fact that this country, America alone, was founded upon violence. Because when they came here, when they first got here to America, the Europeans, what was some of the first things they did? They met with Indians who were trying to really help them to get established, to learn how to plant, to learn how to grow their own medicinal medications and whatnot have you, so for when they got sick. But it came to a point where the Europeans began to want to take over everything that the Indians had here already in the Americas. And so they began to kill them all, okay? They took it by force. They took the land by force, okay? They took over a lot of the native Indian ideas by force. This nation was built on violence. And yet we're told to teach our kids that violence begets violence, and it truly does. So when you look at Nat Turner, I have to look at him in kind of a different light. Even though he did what he did, and he felt like he was being led of God to do it, Nat Turner in his own, when you look at him, I would say he was dishing out what the enslaved people were getting. So violence again was begetting violence, because this is what was happening to him and to our people, okay, our Black enslaved people. And so whether or not he got the mission right that God wanted him to fulfill, or whether or not he heard from God right as far as what he needed to do and the way he responded to what was going on, he did it out of a pure heart, thinking that he was doing what was right. And so that's just how it is. Let's read on a little bit more about him. But it says, what happened after? Turner was captured and executed in November 1831. And in response, white mobs killed many Black people, both enslaved and free, and had nothing to do with the rebellion. Southern states passed harsher laws, slave laws, restricting education, movement, and religious gatherings for Black people. Well, what are we going through today with this administration? We have a president and people that are in Congress and in the White House right now that are tearing down everything that African American people fought for. Our civil rights, our civil liberties, okay? And so much more. They use this DEI cover up thinking that they were going to come and destroy Black people and take jobs away from Black people, not realizing they were hurting their own white people as well. And yes, they've done a lot of damage to Black women. Over 300,000 Black women have lost their jobs. Black men, altogether now there's about 900,000 Black people that are here in America without jobs because of this president and this administration and this Project 2025. Okay, so this is why we are here, to let you know that we need to rise up. We need to stand up. We need to speak out. We're not talking about do the Nat Turner thing where we're using violence, okay, to see change happen. But we need to speak out because what's going on is wrong in this. If Africa can speak out on our behalf, we need to be speaking up for ourselves. Am I right about it, Black people? Okay. We have other nations speaking up for us, standing up for us, for the Blacks here in America. How many of us are standing up and speaking out and denouncing what's going on with Project 2025, denouncing what this president is doing here in America to Black people? Okay, we got to rise up, we got to speak up, and we got to stand up. So the Southern states passed harsher slave laws restricting education, movement, and religious gatherings for Black people. They're taking Black history out of the schools. They've done that in Florida. Okay, and some of the colleges, they done pulled Black history books out and burned them. How evil is that? Why is Nat Turner important? Nat Turner's rebellion had a huge impact. It terrified slaveholding societies in the South, and it intensified the national debate over slavery. It led to stricter controls, but also strengthened the resolve of abolitionists. The deeper meaning is Nat Turner is remembered in deeper ways. Some see Nat Turner as a freedom fighter, resisting an inhumane system or inhumane system. Others historically portrayed him as dangerous because of the violence involved. Well, again, we're going to talk about it, Will, and that is, what do we see happen on the screen of our TVs January 6th? Okay, when they stormed the Capitol. And not only did they storm the Capitol, but there was police officers that were killed in the process of all of that took place on January 6th. What was the year, honey? 2021. I was thinking 22, but 2021, when they stormed the Capitol. Many of those people were arrested, and as soon as your president that's in office today got in, what did he do? He pardoned these people that had stormed the Capitol. Not only that, they were threatening to kill the vice president. Huh? Unalive. Okay, unalive the vice president, President Pence, at the time, allegedly. Okay? And so now they get to walk free. But why is it when African American people do something, right? As soon as we commit a crime or we do something wrong, then they want to take us to court. They want swift justice done on the African American people like they did with Nat Turner. All right? I don't justify what he did when it comes to killing people, because the Bible teaches us that thou shalt not kill. In the Old Testament, it's one of the 10 commandments. Or thou shalt not commit murder. And that applies to every last one of us human beings. We have no right to take another life of another person. Okay? I know there are circumstances sometime with the police when they're in certain situations, but I pray to God that we don't have police out here that do what was done to Sandra Massey in her own home, that do what was done to Breonna Taylor in her own home while she was sleeping, that do what was done to George Floyd. Okay, thou shalt not kill, and that's what the Word of God teaches us. So, you want to say something, Will?
No.
Would you like to read some?
No, go ahead.
Okay. But anyway, let me finish this out, and I'm going to turn it to Will because I'm sure he's got a lot to say. But we talked about the deeper meaning. Today, many historians place his actions in the context of the brutality of slavery and the limited options enslaved people had. Nat Turner's own words, okay? We went through his confession and why he did what he did. He felt like he was led of God to do it. He felt like that was the purpose that God had called him unto. And he also felt as though he was seeing signs. God was showing him signs in the heaven with the eclipse that he saw. And he took that to mean that it was time to arise. It was time to be about the business of what God had called him to do. So what does this mean? Turner didn't describe his rebellion as a revenge alone. He saw it as a mission from God. He believed slavery was not just unjust, but sinful. And that judgment was coming. His language echoes the Bible, especially stories of prophets and divine justice. In his mind, he wasn't just rebelling, he was obeying. Okay? Comparing Turner to other slave rebels, and I'm going to let my husband read that if you can. You don't have to do the 10, it's some of 10, 11, and 12. But so we're going to turn it to Will and let him read some. Okay? I like what somebody said. Winston Malcolm said the words of Bob Marley, Africans united, let's rise together. That's right. Yes. And then he said, hi, Winston. Welcome.
All right, so it says here, comparing Turner to other slave rebels. Denmark Vesey, 1822 in Charleston, planned a large organized uprising in Charleston, South Carolina, intended to seize weapons and escape to Haiti. Plot was discovered before it began, and Vesey was more strategic and political and less focused on religious visions. Gabriel Prosser, 1800 Virginia, organized enslaved workers to march on Richmond, inspired the ideas of liberty from the American Revolution. Rebellion failed due to weather and betrayal. Gabriel's revolt was influenced by the revolutionary ideas like freedom and equality. So what made Turner different? Turner actually carried out a large-scale rebellion.
Yes.
His motivation was deeply spiritual and prophetic. His revolt was more violent and immediate, not just planned. Connecting to today, resistance, faith, and justice. Nat Turner's story still raises hard questions that echo today. When is resistance justified? Turner used violence against a violent system, slavery.
Yes.
Today, people still debate, is violence ever justified against oppression, or must resistance always be nonviolent? This echoes to later figures like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., nonviolence, Malcolm X, self-defense, by any means necessary. The role of faith in justice. Turner believed God was on the side of the oppressed. That same idea show up in slave spirituals, black churches preaching civil rights movement language, the belief God is not neutral in injustice, how history judges resistance. Turner has been labeled fanatic by slaveholders, heroes by some modern scholars. This raises a deeper issue.
Yes.
Who gets to define justice, the powerful or the oppressed?
That's good.
The big picture. Nat Turner's story forces us to confront something uncomfortable. Slavery itself was violent and brutal. Turner responded with violence of his own, and his story sits right at the intersection of faith, resistance, and morality and survival. Nat Turner proclaimed that he was called of God for a specific purpose and plan, and he also saw intense visions where he saw the spirit or divine signs often used in biblical language. An example being, he said he saw an eclipse and he took it to mean a signal from God telling him it was time.
Yes.
He also referenced passages like the book of Revelation where justice and judgment comes from God's hands. These visions gave him a sense of purpose as he saw himself as a prophet leading a final divine reckoning against slavery.
Okay, I think I did that part already. Yeah.
So Turner was married to,
You can read that part, yeah.
Turner was married to a woman named Sharr, an enslaved woman who was likely owned by Samuel Turner. Historical accounts vary, but suggest that they together had 1, 2, or 3 children, a daughter, and possibly 1 or 2 sons. Capture and death. After the insurrection was suppressed, Turner evaded capture for 6 weeks before arrested on October 30th, 1831, and was tried and convicted and hanged on November 11th, 1831. So the confessions, while awaiting trial, he dictated his story to Eternal Thomas Ruffin Gray, known as the Confessions of Nat Turner. Legacy and impact, rebellion consequences. Following the rebellion, Virginia and other states passed partial laws restricting education, movement, and assembly of enslaved people. Immediate aftermath, over 200 black people not involved, many of them not involved in the rebellion, was killed by the white mobs and militias in retaliation. So the significance is Turner's rebellion broke the myth of the contented slave and became a major flashpoint of the fight against slavery.
That's good.
There's some things I wanted to point out.
Okay.
That there was, at that time, most slaves could not read, and some of them did own Bibles.
Yes.
Anyway, which could then serve as a tangible reminder of the good news contained within. Turner, on the other hand, learned how to read as a child, and his Bible was the book that he knew intimately. When captured after the revolt, Turner readily placed his revolt in a biblical context, comparing himself at some times to the Old Testament prophets,
Yes.
at another point to Jesus Christ. In his confessions, Turner quoted the Gospels of Luke twice, and scholars have found many other passages in which his language echoed the language of the Bible, including passages from Ezekiel, Joshua, Isaiah, Matthew, Mark, and Revelation. Like many 19th century American Protestants, Turner drew his inspiration and much of his vocabulary from the Bible. And the information I got was from Wikipedia, the Encyclopedia of Virginia, and the Smithsonian Magazine.
Yes.
One thing we wanted to look at, it says that in 1830, Joseph Travis purchased Turner, and Turner later recalled that Travis was a kind master who placed the greatest confidence in him. However, when he started the revolt, he did kill
His master.
Yes. Amen, and his family. So he felt like, even though he had a good relationship with his later master that he still felt that he was called by God to do that, and he sort of sacrificed his master in order to start the revolution and the rebellion.
Okay, so my question to you guys, and then we're going to go on with the other part of the show tonight, and that is this is what Will touched on when he was reading. It says how history judges resistance. Okay, so Turner has been labeled a fanatic by slaveholders, a hero by some modern scholars. This raises a deeper issue. Who gets to define justice, the powerful or the oppressed? So I want you to think about that, because we know we're living in a time, and so were they, that the oppressors got to define justice. And even today, we have the rich that are over us. Okay, we have the Supreme Court here, and we have the court system. Okay, that defines justice. Even though, like I said, this is a hard one tonight, because Nat Turner did what he felt God was calling him to do. All right, he felt it was God leading him to this mission to rise up and to resist, okay, the oppressors that had enslaved them. But he didn't only resist them, like I said before, murder is not right, because God talks about thou shalt not murder in the 10 Commandments. So how would you look at this situation with Nat Turner? What are your thoughts on what Nat Turner did as far as his revolt against the slave masters that were holding them, our people, enslaved? What do you think about it? Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Will again.
So who is that? Said, in the words of Bob Marley, Africans unite, let's rise together. Okay?
Yes.
So we're going to do our quote in the 3 things of Nat Turner, and then we're going to go into the UN resolution. You want to say the quote?
Yes, our quote for today is, and this came from the UN resolution from...
Oh, well, we'll wait for that then.
Yes, so...
Okay, this is the Nat Turner, 3 things to contemplate for Nat Turner. Before you act, think.
Yes.
Is it true? right, good, and necessary. You want to elaborate on that?
Yes, I mean that's something I took away from Nat Turner, because a lot of times, you hear this on the YouTube, you hear this on the social medias where a lot of people are coming out saying that God spoke to them or God told them such and such a thing. Let me tell y'all, saints of God, the enemy, he can make himself an angel of light. We need to be careful when we said that God told us to tell y'all this, or God said this. God is not speaking to everybody. I've said that before on our Sunday morning services. We have to be careful to try the spirit by the spirit, because I think what Nat Turner should have did was went back before God and probably laid before him prostrate to know if it was truly God speaking to him. Think about the different ones in the Bible. I thought about Gideon. How when God called Gideon, okay, Gideon was not a warrior of any kind. But in order for Gideon to know that it was God that called him to the mission that he called him to, Gideon set out a fleece before God, okay? Mm-hmm. All right, so he can truly have the understanding that it was God leading him to lead the people into war during that time. And so we got to go before God multiple times, not just one time, to make sure that we are hearing from God. And I didn't see where Nat Turner did that in the movie. In the movie, what was shown in Birth of a Nation, when it first came on, you had this spiritist, right? Mm-hmm. That had prayed over him.
Conjuring up the ancestors.
And was conjuring up the ancestors over him. That's not of God. Okay? Spiritism is not of God. Because God does not want us speaking to the dead or trying to get counsel from the dead. You can read it in the Old Testament. And so be careful when you say that well, we need to go seek the elders. We need to go seek the ancestors. That's not the will of God. Okay?
Second is hold on to your faith in the fire.
Hold on to your faith in the fire, people. Black people, hold on to your faith. That's your foundation for everything in life. Hold on to your faith in God, okay? Nat Turner, to me, because he was seeing what was going on with the enslaved people and how our enslaved people were being treated and mistreated, he let that get to him. And I believe he got blindsided a little bit on what the true mission of God really was. It may have just been that God was calling him to go and tell these people they needed to repent for what they were doing and how they were mistreating the black people. Would he have gotten beaten for that? Of course he would have. Because white people or the slave masters would have thought, well, boy, are you rebelling against me? Are you trying to tell me what to do? You see what I'm saying? So I think he got blindsided a little bit as far as what the true vision of God was for him to do and the true work of the Lord. Make sure, like I said before, that you hold on to your faith in the fire. We got to go through things, all right? But it's better to go through it and know that God is with us. Think about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, okay? They were thrown into the fiery furnace. The fire was heated up 10 times hotter than what it was. And then when Nebuchadnezzar looked into the fire, he said, didn't I throw three of them in there? Well, who is this fourth one that looks like the Son of Man? And it was God in the fire with them. Hold on to your faith. Mm-hmm. Regardless of how rocky and how roady it gets right now with this war, that illegal war that their president has put us into, and all the other things that we are being affected with, hold on to your faith in the fire.
And last, trust that God knows what is best even when you don't understand.
Yes. Somebody said a long time ago, and this stuck in my gut, you got to trust God even when you can't trace him. Okay? Hold on to God even when you don't even understand what he's doing. And this is exactly what Nat Turner, he still held on to God, but I truly believe, like I said, that he got blindsided in the mission that God had for him. Okay? Because to kill people, we know is not right. Just because we're being mistreated by somebody else, and our black ancestors and enslaved brothers and sisters were being mistreated and killed and hung from trees and beaten and all those type of things, it still don't give us the right to go and take somebody else's life. Okay? All right, so back to you, Will.
All right, so now we're going to move on. We talked about this a little bit on last week about this UN resolution about slavery being the most atrocious, the most terrible crime in the history. And the main thing about it last week was the fact that the three nations, Argentina, Israel, and the United States, voted against it.
Yes.
But we wanted to go into it deeper. And I thank God for my friend, our friend, Reverend Augustus Corbett.
On the Defiant Lawyer.
Defiant Lawyer.
Yes.
We had a chance to speak with him. I had a chance to speak to his lovely wife. Wonderful couple. He tries to get the information out there to us, and he broke it down legally, which made a little sense. But I want to talk tonight about the actual resolution and what people are talking about. They're angry because Ghana is the one that brought this up.
Yes.
Ghana says that the greatest atrocity was the transatlantic slave trade, and the resolution should be that we recognize that. And so then the foundational Black Americans are saying, because he said that there should be reparations attached to it. And so this is where it gets tricky now. Reparations for who? If he's talking about reparations for the foundational Black Americans, then I'm cool with that.
Yes,
To
exactly.
give it a 3 clap hand from
Amen.
Mr. Willie D. Give it that. Yes, I'll do that. You do not own the copyrights to the 3 claps. That's Willie D. If Willie D, if you ever listening before you broke. But the thing about it is this. They're asking also for reparations for themselves, I see. Now, my thing is this. If you're asking for reparations for the transatlantic slave trade, you don't deserve that. And here's why. They came to your country, you sold your people, and you got goods for that. You got minerals, you've got timber, you got, I guess, gold, whatever. All right, you got for that. You already have been compensated. Okay, the reparations are for those that were enslaved.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the reparations should be for. If they're asking for reparations because of the colonialism that took place afterwards, that has nothing to do with the transatlantic slave trade. That has to do with the British, the US, the European coming in. So that's a separate issue. You don't add the transatlantic slave trade on to that to try to get reparations for the slave trade. You already got that. Okay, the reparations are for us. And I'm like, again, my man Willie D. Nobody's going to skip the line. Okay, we're first. If you're going to give reparations out, they belong to the fundamental Black, foundational Black Americans, descendants. That's who deserves the reparation. So, and then I don't know what's going on in other countries. The U.S. owes us. I live in the USA. This is what I'm talking about.
That's
now,
right.
there are other countries that owe the enslaved Africans reparations too. Portugal, Brazil, even in England, the UK, all of them. They all owe it. If they were part of the transatlantic slave trade, those who were sold into slavery deserve the reparations. And that's what this UN resolution should be about. And if Ghana, I heard that Ghana apologized for it, it's good. Thank you. But you don't deserve reparations on our backs. Okay? That's just my opinion. Now, Sharr may have a different opinion. This is my opinion. If you want to get compensation for colonialism, then you bring that up in a separate issue. Because that did not happen during the transatlantic slave trade. That happened in the 19th and 20th century after that. Okay, 1912 or 1878 and all that, when they came in and took your land and took the minerals, and even up to today what they're doing, which is wrong. That's what you fight for. But don't try to attach the transatlantic slave trade to get something that you've already been compensated for. Okay? And like some of them brought up, there are politicians too. We know that Joe Biden said that the worst sin of America was the original sin. Slavery was the original sin. But yet, he didn't back reparations. He didn't do nothing about it. He's
not upset.
not saying he would get it because you had too many Republicans in there that are against it, but he could have put up a fight. So you can say one thing and mean another. So you can come out and apologize all you want for what you did in selling us in it. But don't use us to try to get reparations for that. Get the separate issue for colonialism and go fight for that. But as far as reparations for foundational Black Americans and the slave Africans around the world, it's the sort of, some people say, well, what about the other?
Haiti.
There were Syrians, there were Arabians, and there was other slaves. I ain't got nothing to do with that. I'm talking about Black people. There wasn't no Syrians, no Indians, no whatever slaves here in America. It was Black people. So America owes Black people. All these other slaves things, let them deal with that. I'm talking about here in America is what we are dealing, and that's the problem. Every time we want to talk about reparations and talk about the wrong that the Black people were done here in America, we want to switch over to another subject. We want to talk about everything else. No, the United States was built on the backs of Black men and women, enslaved Africans. And they're the ones that deserve reparations.
Yes.
You gave reparations to the slave owners. You said that there's no precedent set to give descendants reparations. That's a lie. You gave reparations to the descendants of the Japanese after they attacked us. And then what you did to them during wartime, you gave reparations to them. You gave reparations to the Indians. You gave reparations to several others. So that's a lie. The precedent is set. Black people deserve reparations.
Okay. So Ashley Pepper said, hi, Ashley, welcome. She said, everyone at some point, regardless of your skin color, have been enslaved. So does that mean everybody deserves reparations?
Again, we're not going there. We're talking about
not
everybody was slave to America, and not everyone was slaved in the 1619 to 1865. Black America. We're talking about Black.
Yes.
Foundational Black Americans.
Yes.
That built this country and have been swept under the rug.
Yes.
Okay? I'm not worried about everyone else. Let everyone else deal with them because they'll probably get it. Everybody that goes out there and wants reparations gets it. They just gave reparations to some Jewish people because their feelings were hurt up there in Harvard, Howard University, whatever. So I'm not going there. We love you. What is it, Ashley?
Ashley.
We love you, Ashley, but no, we're not going there. We're talking about Black foundational America.
Right.
The Black men and women of enslaved Africans are the only ones that were enslaved and built this country and received nothing for it.
That's right.
Okay?
Worked the fields, cotton fields. They worked the coffee fields. They worked the, oh my goodness, all the other fields out there that you can think of. The slaves, the Black slaves that were enslaved, Black Americans or Black Africans that were enslaved and brought to this country, they worked those fields. She said nobody deserves Kiefer says nobody deserves reparations. No, but then why is your president that you probably voted for, because you're probably somebody that's not supposed to be on the channel anyway, why is he trying to give reparations to the white people here? Hello. They're talking about sue Africa. No, we're going to stand up for what we have coming.
We're not going there.
Exactly.
It's not working.
Exactly.
It's not working. We're talking about, the fact is, foundational Black American descendants from enslaved Africans deserve
Read your Bible. If you don't believe it, read the Bible.
They enslaved, and that's what I did. Are you listening to what I'm saying? Okay, that's what I said. And so Augustus, my brother, he made a point. This resolution now sets the way for the legal terms. He's a legal mind. Okay? He's saying Ben Crump, all of them, this sets the tone. This helps them legally now to help get the reparations. Like I said to my wife, it may not be in our lifetime, but it might help our children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren. Okay? Trying to do the same thing we've been doing, we're not doing that here. We're keeping the facts, the facts.
Yes.
This is about foundation, and I'll say it once again for those in the back. Okay? Get off your phone, look up, quit talking and giggling and passing notes, pay attention.
Yes.
The United States of America was built on the backs of black, African enslaved men and women.
Yes.
They faced atrocity. We're not even going to go into the atrocities that they faced today, but they were built. Railroad, shipping,
Yes.
business,
White
East
House.
Coast, White House, East Coast, West Coast, North, South was built. Those white Caucasians that are rich today is because their ancestors were made rich and made their money off the backs of black enslaved African men and women.
Yes.
And the black African men and women and their descendants have never been compensated correctly or fairly for what they contributed to this nation.
Yes. Exactly.
That's a fact. Don't try to whitewash us. Don't try to get the subject away. Don't talk about sue them, sue that. No. We didn't build Africa. We built the United States.
That's right.
Okay? So
Yes.
that's the way it is.
And Kiefer, hi Kiefer again. You're saying pay the Irish reparations to them. Yeah, well, maybe you can go after the government here to get the government to pay your Irish reparations. See, we're not dealing with the Irish. Okay, we're dealing with African American people, enslaved people that were brought here on the transatlantic slave ship. And so this is where all this back and forth comes from, because we're not talking about the Irish, even though the Irish, and I have seen the movies on the Irish people too that were done wrong. And whoever did the wrong to them, whether it was America or Europe or wherever these people, England, wherever these people were, they need to go after them and have them pay them reparations. I agree with you on that part. But don't say that we don't deserve reparations, because our black ancestors, like my husband Will said, they built, you know, they slave labored in this country and got nothing, not a dime, not a penny, not a cent for it.
And
So
also
reparations
remember-
are due to the descendants of those that were of the slave trade.
And let me say this, all these other immigrants, y'all came over voluntarily. We were
Forced. Yes.
kidnapped, stolen.
Exactly.
We came against our own choice. Had we had a choice, we would have stayed in Africa. Y'all wouldn't have to have
Exactly.
been bothered with us.
Okay, so we have some trolls on here. We ask you guys to be polite in your comments. And so since you are not being polite, we will be taking you guys down.
What did he say?
He said you ain't built, S-H-I-T, like Jesse says you destroy. No, we don't destroy. You guys destroy. You guys are the murderers. You guys are the killers. You guys are the ones that string black people from their necks from the beginning of time. America is built on violence. And you're still violent today. You still have your groups out here today that think you can push us into a corner and back us up, and it's not going to work.
So let me tell you something. Who's that? Venom Bakery? Yeah, they are responsible today. You know why? Because that same spirit
Is in you.
that was
Exactly.
there back then are in them now.
Yeah.
They said, especially in the Republican Party, they said that we have the spirit of Jefferson Davis,
Yes.
who was the president of the Confederate. In 1980s, they said, that whoever that was, he said the Republican Party has finally adopted the spirit of Jefferson Davis.
Yes.
So that same spirit that was back then
It's
is
still
today.
there, yes.
So don't come with that, you're asking all great, they're not responsible. If they had a chance today, they would go back to slavery today.
That's right.
And that's not the point. The point is they have reparations for everybody else. I bet you if the Jewish people had said that we went to the UN and said we want to have a resolution for the Jewish people and the Holocaust people
Y'all wouldn't have no
to be
problem
a
with it.
resolution.
That's
I
right.
bet you Trump and Argentina and Israel would have no problem
That's right.
voting for it. Okay?
Kevin said.
Okay?
Kevin, hi Kevin. Kevin said I agree. And then Vim Bakery said, I sure as heck don't think like Jefferson Davis. Reparations are a pipe dream, won't ever have. That's what you think. It doesn't hurt to fight
I'm
for
not
them.
saying
It
that
doesn't
you
hurt to
think.
stand up for what
Yeah, it
belongs
probably
to
won't
us.
happen here, but the Bible says
Yes.
that we
Payday.
are going to be recompensed.
That's right.
So if you want to go against God, that's on you. Like I said, we try not to put that here because we do that on our services Sunday morning and Tuesday
And
night.
we love all y'all. We thank y'all for the feedback, but
Yeah,
we're not
thank you
backing
for
down.
the feedback.
We're not taking
But
down.
here's the thing about it. The Republican Party said that. So if you for the Republican Party, then that's what you need to get some education because that's what they said.
Yes.
We
exactly.
finally have the spirit of Jefferson Davis, and they prove it every day. Anything that's black
Yes.
or anything that would help black people, the Republicans shut it down. Okay, because that same spirit that was in their father, the devil, is the same spirit that's in them today.
Yes. Kevin said that I'm South African, so I understand white South African. That's right, Kevin. And then I didn't see that one.
Oh, with $37 trillion in debt, but we're still able to pay $1 billion a day for this war that is not ours.
Exactly.
Don't nobody say nothing about that. They don't talk about the debt when they want to go and bomb people and want to get into a war that's not really because Israel wanted us in it. Okay, where do we get the money for all this stuff? Where do we get the money to give all this money to Argentina to help them out? Where do we get the money to give to all these foreign countries? Mm-hmm. But yet when it comes to us who helped build this country then, there's no more money.
Yep.
Really?
And then we got Vinman's Bakery. Vinman's Bakery says, so how much for reparations? What's the total? It's in the billions, actually. And then I think I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your things right.
How much
One
did
of them
you give?
asked, wait a minute. One of them said that the Bible is contradicted and flawed. The only thing that's flawed and contradictory is mankind, because we live in a fallen world. Man is flawed. God is not flawed. There's no contradiction in the word of God. Amen. But we're not going to stick on the word of God. We're going to get through this tonight. One more person. Kevin Clark said, I'm living in Bahrain and we all feeling the mistakes from the United States president. That's right. It's so unfair. We have to live in fear now for the past month. Are y'all hearing this, people? She's from Bahrain. They're from Bahrain. Kevin Clark is from Bahrain, and everybody's feeling this, what this president is doing. And it's wrong. It's wrong what they're doing. While they're sitting in the White House filling their pockets with money and greed and whatnot have you off of the American people backs and tax dollars, then they got other people in other countries that are starving, going without food and whatnot have you. And even in this own country, you think that's right? And if you do, it's something wrong with your head.
And the reason why you have to live in fear, and I'm sorry you do, is because you have an incompetent
president
man in office. And it's proven today as we got rid of another incompetent. Pam Blondie's gone and never should have been in there. And it just shows that he's incompetent. He put in incompetent
everybody
people,
that's
and more
under
coming.
him
More coming, and eventually it will trickle down to him. And so incompetency, and then we have someone incompetent as the Department of the Secretary of Defense. And that's the reason why you have to live in fear, because they did not calculate this, did not think about this. The Secretary of Defense says we negotiate with bombs. Okay, that just shows you the incompetence, but it's going to show the darkness will come to light. All right, we're going to do the quote, then we're going to get out of here.
Okay, so our quote for tonight, and this has been very good because this is what we want. We want that dialogue. We want that monologue, y'all. Mm-hmm. Yes, but just know that we are here on behalf of our Black people. We are here on behalf of our Black history to teach it to our children. Since y'all want to take it out of our schools and not teach Black history, we're going to teach it, okay? And so we're not going to back up against the wall. We're not going to back down. We're not going to take down. We're going to stand tall, all right? But here's the quote for today. It says, there are spirits of the victims of slavery present in this room at this moment, and they are listening for one word only, justice. And that's by Esther Phillips, the first poet poet laureate of Barbados. And I thought that was so beautiful the way that she put that out there, okay? So she said that at the UN when they were there trying to get this resolution, okay, pushed forth about the designating the trafficking and chattel enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity.
Okay, last one. No, you just want free money. That's what it comes down. Oh, really? Okay, so all the work that the slaves
You see,
did,
I'm laughing at.
all the work that the slaves did was free, huh? I'm working today. We're working today.
Yes, we
Okay.
work. We pay our way.
Okay, we
pay our
still
taxes.
working today. If you have a job, do you go to work and not get paid? No, you want a check. But according to you, that's free money. So you should give it when you get your check next time, give it back to your boss and say, I'm not going to take this free money.
Yes, we know there is still slavery in
We're
Africa
not talking
today.
about Africa.
We pay
We're
attention
talking
to
about
that too.
U.S.
Yes.
We're talking about the U.S. now. Okay. All right. Thank you. You can't give all that money to them sneaky blacks.
And you sure can't give it to y'all.
Sneaky either.
I ain't gonna call
Okay.
you what you just talked
Okay.
about us, but no, you sure can't give it to you
I
guys
don't know
either.
who's sneaky, but it's old. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Well, we're going to get out of here now. Thank you for joining us. This has been In the Face of Truth. If you like what you hear, hit that like and
Oh,
subscribe
I love
button
it.
right now, and join us again next week around 6:30 for a live tell a
Yes.
friend. We had about 60 people today. Let's get it up to 200 next week.
That's
have a
right.
conversation.
That's right.
We
That's
may
right.
not agree, but we do all love.
That's
All
right. We love y'all.
So
Come back
this
next
is-
week.
I'm William. This is Sharon. This is Will and Share in the Face of Truth. God bless you.
Yes.
See you later.